Entering your observations into eBird Online is quick, it's easy, and this video is going to take you through the process step by step and hopefully help make you feel super comfortable entering your data online. In no time at all, you're going to be cruising through these submissions and ultimately helping local, national, and global bird conservation efforts. So grab yourself a drink, open up your computer in the New Zealand eBird homepage, and let's log in. Alrighty, so once you're at your beautiful dashboard, you just need to look up in the top left for that submit button. Oof. Alright, eBird is going to ask you 4 key questions here. The first one, where did you bird? Now you can use this drop down menu if you want, and that's going to have previous locations where you've submitted data. You can find it on a map, which is what we're going to do. There are other options. If you've used the GPS, for example, you can use lat long. You could select an entire city, county, state, or even a country, but we don't recommend using that. The more precise location data you can give eBird, the better. And of course, you can just import data from a spreadsheet or a birding program. But for now, I'm going to go back to that box, type in Nelson, and click on Nelson, New Zealand. It's going to send you to this schwanky map page. If you click on the satellite button, that just gives a more crisper and more detailed image. And then we're going to start banging on that plus button to get right into where we were birding. Now you see all these bubbles. The blue bubble is just a previous location. The red bubble is a birding hotspot. I'm going to zoom in as far as I can. I was in the Grampians just above Nelson. And you see those blue bubbles there. That's where I was previously. But I'm going to double click here to create a new location. And bing, that bright green bubble pings up as a new location. Now I can give that location a name. I usually use the protocol of country, city, and then either reserve name or street name. Now say you wanted to use a previous location, you can just click on that blue button and then it will come up with the location. But I want to double click again, get that bright green bubble, give it a name, and then click on continue. Now before we do, you can tick this box to say, I would like to suggest this as a birding hotspot if it's absolutely brimming with species. But I'm not going to do that for this one, so I'll continue. Now we're on to the second key question, date and effort. So you're going to use the drop downs or the calendar view here to fill in the date, and then you're going to select observation type. You've got 5 options here. Either you were traveling, so you traveled a specific distance on a trail, or you were doing a loop, or you could have been stationary, where you were watching from a window, or you were sat watching the sea. Could be historical data, so you don't have the start time, duration, or distance, but you've still got some juicy data. 4th type is incidental, so birding wasn't your primary purpose, but you've still got some good details to add in. For example, you're at the campsite and a New Zealand falcon flies overhead. You want to put that in, but you don't have time to do a full checklist. That's an incidental record. Now, there are other options like banding or nighttime observations, which you can select. If my explanations don't make sense, you can click on these more info buttons by each of them, read through that, select the appropriate observation type, and then crack on with putting in the start time, however long you were out for, the distance you covered. I use Google Maps to estimate this. You can then select the primary habitat type that you were in, whether you're in an urban park, or whether it was mangrove, or whether it was deciduous forests. You don't have to put this in, so no worries if you miss this out. You can then put how many were in your party size. I was on my own for this one. And then you can add in any comments, such as the weather. Once you've filled in all of that good stuff, click on the green continue button. Sweet! Now you're on to the third question, and possibly the best question. What did you see or hear? Now before you go crazy, we just have a couple of tips. On the right hand side, you'll see preferences in that little cog. Click on that. Now we'd recommend that subspecies and also breeding code are always shown. We also recommend that both common and scientific name are given for species names. You can have one or the other, but the most important thing is in this drop down menu, show common name in English New Zealand. If it's anything else, make sure that it's New Zealand. This just saves a whole heap of confusion. Once you've sorted all of that out, click Save Preferences, it'll reload. Now, say you've been super lucky where you've been out and you've seen something rare, click on Show Rarities on the right hand side, it'll reload again, and then if you scroll down you can see in bold orange type next to species, these are the rare ones. Oh, and one final thing, you can learn some shortcuts to help speed up the process if you need them. Not the end of the world if you don't know them. I sometimes use the tab button, but it's all golden. Alright, let's crack on. So now to fill in the good stuff. All you need to do now is just fill in the number of each of the species that you saw or heard. So I saw 4 bellbirds and 3 chaffinches. I also saw 8 beautiful fantails. I had 3 red-billed gulls fly overhead. Saw a good handful of silver eyes, 15 in total. Also saw a handful of house sparrows. I heard and saw 5 gorgeous tuis. There was a grey warbler singing its heart out, and there was a whacker as well. So that's everything. I could click on submit for now, but I want to show you how to add in extra details. So click on this add details button, and say for example with the tui, I could add in that I heard them calling and singing. I could also add a photo in that I took if I wanted to. So I'd click here, click on my photo, it'll then upload, and then there's my photo of a stunning tui. I can rate the photo if I want to and add in extra details. I could add in about the age and the sex of the bird if I knew it. And I can add a breeding code. So for this one, it was in appropriate habitat. The more you're adding to your observations, the better. This table is just an extension of age and sex data. Again, all good things to add in if you have it. So now I'm just going to fly through the other observations and add in details. For example, for silver eyes, I could add that there were 2 groups seen and heard. I can add in that I saw the red-billed gulls flying overhead. And you can add extra details like, for example, the fantails that I saw. I saw and heard 8 adults and 2 of them were in black phase. All very, very good information to put in, and eBird loves that. So I'll just zip through the remainder and boom, I am done. That is everything that I need to put in here. Now you're probably wondering why I said there were 4 key questions. Before you click on submit, eBird asks you this simple question. Are you submitting a complete checklist of the birds you were able to identify? Simple yes or no answer, and it relies on you being honest here. If there was something you saw and you couldn't identify it, or there was something singing and you couldn't identify it, then this would be an incomplete checklist because you haven't been able to identify everything. eBird takes in the wide range of birders' abilities to identify, and so answering this question is actually very, very important. Now for this checklist, I was able to identify everything that I saw, everything that I heard, so I will click on yes. So say for example you did hear a bird singing and you just couldn't identify it, but you've made note of it. I'm just going to quickly show you how you can put in that information without worrying that you're putting the wrong species in. So if it was a singing bird, let's scroll down to P and go to passerine species. Now that encompasses over half of all bird species and are those that perch or are less accurately described as songbirds. Many of New Zealand's species fall into this order. So selecting this will still enable you to submit a full, complete checklist with a level of accuracy as to what you couldn't identify in the field. So you can do this for different families within your checklist, and that should help increase the accuracy of your checklists because you're acknowledging that you weren't able to identify it, but you had a good grasp of what family that bird belonged to. So if you heard one bird singing, you weren't sure what it was, you can just put 1 in here and you can add details like I was unsure of the ID. And that's brilliant. That then gives eBird an indication that there was an additional species that you couldn't quite identify but was still in the area. And you can apply this same method to other species groups that maybe you had difficulty identifying. If you're still unsure, hit the question mark button right by the question and it'll bring up this text, read through it, and that will hopefully all then make sense, and then you can answer the question and hit that green submit button. Beautiful. Alright, your checklist has been submitted. Now you can check through the summary page here, make sure everything's correct. If you've made a mistake, for example, you can go in and edit it. And if you are happy with everything, then you can either go back to your checklist, you could print, download, email to yourself, delete it if you need to. You can share it with other people who are on eBird as well. And then you can submit another checklist if you need to from the same location, area or date, any of these options on the right hand side. By all means, browse the options, explore it, but for now, I'm going to log out here. Thank you for watching, hope it's been helpful, and have fun.